a huge part of, gaining traction in my career, whether it was going from an apprentice to a journeyman is somebody who's licensed, to a foreman who actually runs crews of guys, to now getting into the office, was based on the fact that I always dressed one level above where I was at. So when I was an apprentice, everybody else was running around in ratty jeans, didn't shave. I mean, I got a full beard and stuff, but they didn't take care of their grooming. They looked like,
Look like
I
that.
changed. Yeah, I changed that by wearing a polo, making sure everything I wore was clean, making sure that I was groomed, and so what ended up happening was I really kind of pissed off our foreman at the time, because people would come onto the job and they would think that I'm in charge. And I'm not in charge, but they would come over and they'd see the guy who looked clean, who looked like he was put together, and they'd come over and start asking me questions. He's like, no, he's just an apprentice. That eventually got the attention of my boss, and he was like, you might not be a bad face of the company at meetings. Move that up. I ended up climbing the ranks. Now I'm in the management side, and I can not totally attribute it to that completely, but it did give me that extra maybe 10%. And when it's you versus another person in the same job, 10% might be all you need.
Gentlemen, welcome back to the Alpha M podcast. And today I have a sentimental, personal friend and favorite of mine. Carl Murawski, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing excellent. How about yourself?
I'm well. So I need to give a little backstory and context to why you touched me so much and why it's been such a pleasure to get to know you over the years. You have come into sort of the fold of, the Menfluential, YouTube world. I believe it was like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I believe you started your YouTube channel back in December, like the last week of 2015. And so It's been about 4 years, right? Now, did you come to the StyleCon back then prior to starting the channel? I believe you did, right?
I did. Yeah. That was the impetus for starting it. It was like, anybody who's never been, you leave and it's just this, it's this feeling you want to continue. You get totally inspired. You go home, you're ready to take on the world. And I think a lot of times that tends to taper off for a lot of people. You forget how that felt, and you kind of forget.
Absolutely.
It over time.
Let's back up a second, Carl. You, how do I even describe you? You are a, salt of the earth, blue collar guy, self-professed blue collar dude, right?
Yep.
You live up in the Northeast, New England. You work on the railroad. I mean, come on, does it get any more blue collar than that, right? Salt of the earth, and the way that you have sort of parlayed your passions into sort of a career and this new sort of frontier for you, I just find it really inspiring. And I think that a lot of our listeners will find it's truly just amazing, sort of that journey that you sort of have gone on. Because I think a lot of people out there always have sort of the idea that, I would love to be an entrepreneur, I would love to do this, I love clothes, I love whatever it may be, but they never take that leap, they never take that step. Well, about 5 years ago, you took that step to sort of scratch the itch of style, and where it has led you in terms of sort of, everything from, your video, and then you started making videos, and it's like, oh my God, I love making videos, and I want to up my video production, and then it became about that. And then it was like, oh my God, I love boots, and now you probably have 6,000 pair of boots. And then you started a membership website to help other guys sort of realize sort of their own personal potential. And so I think, you're mid-evolution. A lot of the people that I know sort of have made that jump, have made that sort of transition from thinking about it to full-time doing what they love, what they're passionate about. You are mid-transition, the way that I sort of see it. Tell everybody a little bit about your story, where you come from, what you do, why you started doing the YouTube thing, and then the evolution of that. And it's fascinating. And so I talk too much. I'm going to let you do a little bit of work. Go ahead.
Well, yeah.
How was that for an intro? That was probably the worst intro ever, right? Or it was the best. I'm not sure which one.
No, not at all. It's funny because I was watching your videos long ago, back in 2013, 2014. And then I saw the first StyleCon come and go. And I was like, man, I really wanted to go to that. I couldn't justify it at the time. It wasn't even on my radar to make it a career or even get into it at all. The next year, I started toying around with the idea. And I remember specifically going on my honeymoon with my wife, and I was sitting in this little cabana outside in Mexico, and I was like, I shouldn't be this bummed to go back to work. Like, I was dreading it. I was counting down the days. I'm like, God, it's Wednesday. I only have, a few more days left. I got to really soak it in. And you can't relax when you feel that way. So I was like, all right, well, you know what? I'm going to go to this, and I'm just going to at least meet some other people who are into the same kind of thing that I am. And it was this electric feel in the air, it's just, it's so alluring and intoxicating. It's really unbelievable. So I remember sitting there and I'm watching Antonio talk and I'm thinking, what the hell do I have to bring to the table? Everybody else here has their niche, Brock is up there and he's doing the modest man thing, and everybody has their gig. And what I didn't realize at the time is it took him a long time to really chisel that out of it. Didn't. I'm looking at their chapter 10 and I'm comparing it to my, table of contents. And right. So I remember thinking, like, what could I do? Here I am. I'm an electrician. How do I dovetail that? The guys who I work with aren't into style at all. How can I just make this work? So I just began and just started. And I found that there's so much value in imperfect action, just starting and then kind of figuring it out. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to look back and you're going to cringe on those early days. But if you never start, then you can never get to chapter 1 and chapter 2 and begin that journey down that path. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to start. And I look back and I'm like, oh, geez, like we all do. Like, what was I thinking or whatever, or production-wise.
But you started originally, I think you were going to try and be like an image consultant, right? That was kind of the goal. It wasn't necessarily YouTube. That was going to be sort of like a mechanism, but it was to be an image consultant, right?
Absolutely.
And so talk a little bit about your background, though. You had mentioned that you're an electrician, but now you work for the railroad, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's the two are the same.
You're also a musician. You're not also a musician, a drummer.
Yeah. Your dad and I had a lot of good.
Yeah, you are a true Renaissance man. And so what is your background? How do you go from electrician to the railroad to drumming to style consultant?
Yeah, it seems really strange. I think a lot of it just, I can kind of trace it back to when I got out of high school, and I was this one guy in high school, left high school.
Who were you in high school, Carl? Who were you in high school?
I was the drummer, band, metal nerd guy. That was what I did. I was the guy who played drums, and I've been doing that since I was 13. I realized, though, when I got out of high school that wasn't getting me what I wanted, specifically, like, I wasn't the most popular guy with the ladies at all, because I was just like, now I shave my head because there's not much left up there. Back in the day, I was shaving my head because I was like, I'm going to try to be the most intimidating guy I possibly can be. And women don't really respond to that too much, So,
No.
I got out of high school and I remember thinking, all right, what I'm doing now isn't getting me what I want. It's not making me who I want. I'm miserable. I have a chance now that I'm away from my normal crowd to be somebody completely different, or be who I want to be, or at least start making steps toward that. And so that's what I did. I was like, I'll grow my hair out. I'll start going to the gym. I'll start paying attention to what I wear rather than just another Metallica or whatever shirt. And it was this whole transformation, and it was an amazing experience. So I remember thinking, well, style was just such a big part of that, and trying to help other guys realize that potential. And I had very limited success as a style consultant. In the beginning, it was through like targeted Facebook ads around my area and stuff like that. And there are some guys who are willing to pay for that service, but ultimately the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. So
it's a grind. And it's also not scalable. And that was something that I faced when I was doing the style consulting, is that it's a lot of time. You're working a long day, long hours, and you're making good money, but the clients are few and far between, and and so it's a tough grind. And so what was the next step for you?
At that time, I was a mechanic. I got out of high school. Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right. Okay, so add another one. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. When I got out of high school, I got into the college that I wanted to get into, but my parents were split up, And it was more or less like, look, going to New York for college just isn't in the cards financially. And looking back, I'm glad I didn't, because it was in the music industry, and that has completely changed since those days. I would probably be homeless. So, I just was looking for a job that I could do. And I always enjoyed working on cars. So I got a job at the local auto shop. I worked there for a while until I realized that I am at the peak here. I've peaked and I'm 22 years old. Like, this is not acceptable. I'm looking at the other guys who I'm working with who are 50. They're doing the exact same job I'm doing for not much more money. So I'm thinking to myself, well, what can I do? I don't have a college education. I don't have any connections. I'm not from, anybody who's, like a rich family with any sort of, privileges and getting into a company. None of that. So one day I was just really pissed off at work, and I got in my truck and I drove to like the local tech school. And that night I signed up to be an electrician. I decided on the way there that I wanted to do electrical, because I remember thinking, well, plumbing's kind of like
shitty.
Yeah.
It's shitty work, Carl.
Exactly. I'm like, but electricians, they're always kind of respected, and it looks like it's, it could be something I'm into. Set off down that path. Now I work for one of the biggest contractors in New England, and one of the big things that we do is work on catenary and third rail work coming out of Grand Central and up through to Connecticut and Stamford and stuff. There's a lot of it. But it sounds funny when you talk to people who don't live in an area where their rail is very popular. It sounds like you're working like with like coveralls on, with like a pickaxe over your shoulder.
You've got a hammer and you're driving stakes into the railroad ties, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But interestingly enough, the content that you started to create was based on your passion. But you joked about coveralls, but a lot of the material that you're putting out there is about workwear. It is about the rugged boots. It's about Carhartt clothing. It's about leather jackets. Talk a little bit about why you were so passionate about this genre of clothing and sort of workwear.
There's a tremendously underserved guy who is in the world of work. And I think what I've discovered is that these guys don't really want to tell you that they're into the way they look at all. It's something that most guys won't admit among the company of their peers at work. But there's plenty of people who actually do. And so I found that whether it's just looking for the best thing to work in, best work pants, boots, whatever it is, or a way to kind of take that look and when you leave work, not become somebody completely different. I still want to leave and I still want to look like a rugged guy who, works with his hands for a living, but I want to take that and make it look refined. And that's exactly what I was doing. I just kind of thought I was the only one, and come to find out that's not true at all.
So how did you get into, I went back and I actually watched some of your earlier videos. Was the Anson Belt review, was that your first video, or was that the first video, which is better than like the first 300 videos that I did. And it was, and you just had a demeanor and a very calm, sort of air about you. And then you combine it with that buttery soft voice, and it's all she wrote, right? So what I want to talk about now is you have taken your YouTube sort of career and you've really doubled down on the production value of the content that you're creating. I mean, it's like next level, was this always a passion, or just something that you sort of discovered that you were really good at and you loved doing it?
Yeah, I figured it out over time. It was definitely something where the bug bit me, and I did not expect that anywhere. And that's the same thing with, just starting something. Who knew that would be a passion? But it really did take hold. And all of a sudden, you're fiddling around, and it's like, I can walk you through the evolution of color grading and lighting setups and all that kind of thing, and always trying to perfect it, which is probably why the first 200 videos all look different, because I'm messing around with something new. I wish I could have just been like, this is my setup, now let's concentrate on the content. But no.
So something else that you've done that I love, you go into the factories. You go and talk to the craftsmen, the artisans, and do almost like a documentary of sorts. What has been your favorite video that you have made in that genre?
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one. I went to a place called American Woolen, and it was a guy from Italy. He was a investment.
American, what is it?
Woolen.
Woolen, okay.
Yeah. It was a guy, he was an investment banker from Italy, and he came over to Connecticut, of all places. I didn't realize this was right in my backyard. And he took over an old, shut down Loro Piani factory with like 6 buildings, their own water source, the works, and hired back the staff that had gotten laid off in the town, put them all back to work, and now they're making textiles for Allen Edmonds and Timberland and all these huge names. And he's really changed that town just by creating jobs there again. And it was just amazing to walk around there. And this guy is like high energy. I was chasing him around, trying to get like steady shots. And I'm like, can you just wait a minute? You know, I'm trying to like get a shot of something. And he just wouldn't stop. He was just go, 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 go. But it was really cool. And his passion for that was just, it was so infectious. It was great.
Speaking of passion, one of yours is boots. Big passion, right? And so I think you have like 15, 20 videos about boots. I'm not sure exactly how much. How much money have you spent on boots? Have you tallied it? Have you figured it out?
I'm afraid
some of them are expensive. Yeah. Right? Thousands and thousands of dollars on boots. What is it about the boot that really resonates with you?
I'll tell you honest, for me, I'd like to be able to throw on the first pair of shoes that I put on in the morning and be able to do whatever I'm going to do. So if I'm going to go out and I'm going to ride on my motorcycle, or if I'm going to go out to coffee with a friend, or if I'm going to take the kids to the park, I want to be able to do all those things in the same footwear. I don't want to be too fussy about what I wear, you know? So it was really part of that. I want to be able to do all these things and not be like, I got to stop back and I got to change because these won't work or whatever. Nah, I want to be able to just hammer down.
All right, well, talk to me a little bit about how you were trying to impact other men. I did not know until I really started looking around and really catching back up with what you're doing, that you started a membership website, right? Mm-hmm. Where you are trying to help other guys sort of realize a few, just basically be the best version of themselves that we possibly can, right? You hear that a lot though. You hear, oh, you want to be the best version of yourself. Well, you have a different sort of mantra or sort of the 3 pillars of sort of the community that you're building. One is, what is it, a rugged mindset, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Is that accurate? Okay, Tell me a little bit about what is this rugged mindset? I'm serious.
Yeah. For me, it was sort of a reaction to what the other things that I've seen out there. There's a lot of guys who come out with this very machismo kind of military approach that always turned me way off. Automatically, I was like, this ain't for me. But at the same time, I always respected the guy who was like the quiet, tough guy you would call on if something went wrong. All of a sudden you have an issue at your house, the plumbing's leaking downstairs or your car breaks down. Who's the guy that you call? And I was kind of
the guy with the truck.
That's
the guy who has the truck, right?
That's it. It's the guy who keeps cool under pressure, the guy who can go through things. And I just came up with that idea as when I was thinking about the word rugged itself, which means that, you can be put through your paces, you can endure hardship and come out on the other end better for it. So you can go up against adversity and not have any, and so you can extend that out through so many different things. No matter what you're going through, you can endure it. We just had that power outage. We had to delay this a week because we were out of power for 4 or 5 days.
Well, you're an electrician, Carl. How did this not happen faster?
Oh, we had a generator.
You're the guy I'm calling. You're the only electrician I know. If my power goes out or I need to replace an outlet, you're the guy, Carl. Just so you know, you're my guy.
Yeah, but I can't create electricity. That's the only problem. But
all right.
Just being able to take care of things.
What about boss style? What does that mean?
A huge part of gaining traction in my career, whether it was going from an apprentice to a journeyman is somebody who's licensed, to a foreman who actually runs crews of guys, to now getting into the office, was based on the fact that I always dressed one level above where I was at. So when I was an apprentice, everybody else was running around in ratty jeans, didn't shave. I mean, I got a full beard and stuff, but they didn't take care of their grooming. They looked like, I changed that by wearing a polo, making sure everything I wore was clean, making sure that I was groomed, and so what ended up happening was I really kind of pissed off our foreman at the time because people would come onto the job and they would think that I'm in charge. Mm-hmm. And I'm not in charge, but they would come over and they'd see the guy who looked clean, who looked like he was put together, and they'd come over and start asking me questions. He's like, no, he's just an apprentice. that eventually got the attention of my boss, and he was like, you might not be a bad face of the company at meetings. Move that up. I ended up climbing the ranks. Now I'm in the management side, and I can not totally attribute it to that completely, but it did give me that extra maybe 10%. And when it's you versus another person in the same job, 10% might be all you need. So
absolutely,
that's the idea behind that.
What about and I love that. I love that. I didn't know. I thought like boss, just be the boss, but like literally, like dress like your boss.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I absolutely love that, because it is true. I mean, we live in such an incredibly competitive world. We're competing all the time. We're competing for money, for career, for job, for significant others. We are always competing. And that's something that I sort of really hammered home when I was doing the image consulting, is you cannot afford to not put your best foot forward, because if you're not doing it, your competition might. If you put two people in the same room, same qualifications, everything is equal, one person takes care of themselves in terms of their style, their grooming, their presentation, the other person doesn't. 100% of the time, the dude who does and has the nice clothes, the presentation a little bit more polished, he's the guy who gets the job, gets the girl, gets the money, gets the whatever it is. And so I 100% agree with you on that point. The third component to your sort of pillars or mantra is all about being a grounded leader. What do you mean by that?
The guy who's calm when things are going wrong, that's the person who people tend to look to for advice. So today, for example, we are doing a huge job, $33 million job. We're plowing into the ground these cables, right? We had a run today that was over 6,000 feet from one end to the other. We're shutting down roads. We're doing all kinds of stuff. In the middle of this thing, we hit a stone, blew out a shear pin, damaged the cable. This is the only cable that we have that we ordered in this specific length. It'll take a long time to get. Huge problem. People are panicking all over the place, but the person that everybody looks at is the guy who is calm under fire, because he's the one who's going to make the decision ultimately. And people don't tend to value the person who panics. And I've always noticed that the person who can keep their shit together is the one who people tend to gravitate toward. It takes confidence to do that, but being that, whether it's for your friends or for your family, being that person that people know they can go to when they have a real problem is so valuable. And it's partly is just being that guy, becoming that guy, the person I've always admired.
I love it. So what's next for you, Carl? I consider you sort of mid-journey. What's next? What is the next, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, whatever it may be? What does it look like for you? And what do you, I should say, what would you like it to look like?
Yeah, ideally. I'll tell you, honestly, what I want to do this next year is I want to start finding other people who are in the trades, who do different jobs. The carpenters, the guys who do these jobs maybe you never heard of, crane operators. I really want to go and interview them, get an idea of what they do, to provide sort of a library of jobs that people can look at. If you're 17, 18 years old and you're going, college just ain't for me, I want to do something else. Well, asking these people, hey, so, what's the range of earning potential in this job? Some of these guys, the guys I work with, they all earn over 6 figures, easy. Nobody knew that was a possibility. I didn't.
I think Mike Rowe and Dirty Jobs really, that goes down as one of my favorite shows of all time. And I think what he did really well is just show, and he still talks about the fact that a lot of these jobs that are not glamorous, that we need as a society in order to keep our society rolling. These guys that are doing this work, it might not be glamorous. They might smell like shit at the end of the day, but they're millionaires. They've got these amazing businesses, and they've hollowed out a niche. And so I love that idea that you're going to be interviewing these people. What else do you think you'll be doing?
I really want to develop a product of some sort. I'm still figuring out what that looks like. I really like working with individual makers, although that's really hard to scale. But I've started to do a couple collaborations with people who they have the goods, they make the stuff, and they're amazing at it, but they suck at marketing. Well, I can help them on that side, because the people who watch my channel are really into that type of thing. So if we make a product together that's really great, then we could probably sell a number of units of it. I would like to be able to do that time and time again and find these different artisans who are really good at what they do. There's a guy, he works out of an Airstream trailer in Kentucky, I think it is, hand making boots one at a time. Well, two at a time. I mean, a guy like that. And he's not spending time on marketing at all. But if I can get him out there to people who are really interested, I would like to do more of stuff
Perfect example.
Like that,
all right, this belt that I'm wearing, it is not an Anson. I'm going to show it to you. It's a double ring, belt, right? I love double ring belts for whatever reason. And so I was online and I was looking, and they were really hard to find. None of the real manufacturers made what I was looking for. And what I ended up stumbling upon was this guy who was retired, who basically makes belts. He makes different kinds of belts. You can do the double ring. You can do a few other options. And it is the most archaic website. It's like, hey, mail me a letter with your size and measure it like this. And it just I loved it so much. And I just thought to myself, this guy, he's retired. He's doing this. I think the belt cost me like $50 or something like that. And he got back to me after I emailed him. And just thinking about, if he really wanted to turn that into a business, what the potential could actually be in the age of the internet with a marketing channel or outlet. And so you are thinking about, finding these craftsmen, these artisans, and helping them sort of, I guess, like when I hear you say this, I almost picture this website, right? Where it's, just different things that are cool that you can go to. You've got this list of products that, are sort of personally curated by you that you've vouched for, you've tested, that you love, and allowing other people to sort of go and you act as sort of like the conduit between it, making a commission or maybe an upcharge, and they do the work, they do the drop shipping. Is that sort of what I hear you saying?
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I sniff these places out. I've always liked to do that kind of thing, and it's amazing the guys that you can find or girls who are just they're holed up in their workshop, and you really have to dig to find them. But you can find some really amazing stuff out there, and so it's great because a lot of people ask me, and I'm a resource for them to find the best, whatever it is in my genre. And usually you gotta go knock on this guy's door, like you said, and ask him to make you a bag or a belt or whatever it is.
So let's talk a little bit about money in terms of being a content creator and making it. In a world of people like me who does basically a lot of promotions, working with different brands. When was it? How soon after you started your YouTube channel did you actually make any money? And how much was it? And what was it for?
It was, well, are you talking aside from AdSense revenue?
Yeah, aside from AdSense revenue.
Yeah, it was probably some affiliate money. That's a good way to do it, and it's becoming more and more popular. But I don't remember exactly how much it was, but I was part of a few of the earlier affiliate marketing things, and I was like, oh wow, you can actually make more here than you can with the AdSense, which isn't much.
You need a lot of views. And that's, I think, one of the big misconceptions is just because you have YouTube videos, you're not making a lot of money from the AdSense. But in terms of, you decided not to do sort of the as many brand deals and paid promotions because you, I'm assuming, wanted to really maintain your credibility and do what you love in terms of the content that you create. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, and that's one of the pitfalls, I think. You see a lot of people who they go all in. They go, that's it, this is what I'm doing. Well, unfortunately, those bills keep coming. And so I have the luxury of doing that because I have a full-time job. I can turn down whatever I want. But I can understand the appeal of, well, we'll offer you $5,000, $10,000 to do this particular video. You have bills, and you're looking at how am I going to make this work. I sympathize with guys like that. And it's only because I have that full-time gig or to diversify enough that you can turn those kind of things down.
So talk to us about, somebody's out there, they want to start a YouTube channel. What's your best 2 tips in terms of getting started? Because you had mentioned earlier, looking back and seeing it, cringing and being like, oh my God, what was I talking about? What was I doing, right? It's horrible looking back. But what are your 2 best tips for somebody who's thinking about possibly getting into sort of the YouTube space and creating content?
The first thing is that your audio is more important than video. Who would have thought that in video, your most important thing is audio? It sounds counterintuitive, but people will watch a crappy video with decent audio rather than the other way around. So if you're going to spend money, most people have a limited budget to spend it on a decent mic and audio first. So as far as production goes, that's the number one thing. Other than that, though, I see too many people who try to copy. I've seen people who copy your formula to the T, and they burn out because it's not authentic to them, and people aren't watching because they can tell it's inauthentic. So it sounds so cliche to say find your authentic voice, but ultimately we all end up there anyway. I began somewhere where I thought I wanted to ended up where I actually was more in my headspace. Whether you do it the long, hard way, the way I did, or if you just start in the beginning saying, this is what I'm into, this is who I am, this is what I value, you have to be authentic because people sniff that out. People have a sixth sense for inauthenticity.
No, 100%. And that's something that I talk about often is when I started YouTube, it was very early. It was 2008. And I was looking around at the people that were popular, the people that were getting views. And back then, it was very un-PC. And so a lot of the things that were getting attention were people being sort of over the top, were being very crude, saying things that were a little bit outlandish. And I thought that that's what I needed to do in order to basically get approval and get views and to be liked. And so I started, making videos and being, honestly, like kind of a dick. And looking back, those videos, for the most part, are gone because I was so embarrassed of it. But everything changed for me when I sort of dropped the act and dropped the shit and just sort of got authentic and real and hey, this is me. I've got flaws. I'm obviously not perfect, and I'm going to be vulnerable. And so I think that for me, the thing that has really helped me sort of with my longevity is just being vulnerable and allowing people to sort of come into your world and share, sort of what you're going through with you when you're going through a tough time or when you're happy, when you're excited. I think, I think social media is a double-edged sword, right? There's a lot of great things about it, but I look around at sort of the state of sort of social media, and it's incredibly toxic. You had mentioned earlier that sort of a turnoff for you was this like over-the-top machismo, sort of, beat your chest, I am so macho and manly. And I got to be honest, Carl, that turns me off so much. There are people that we know that sort of have gone that really hardcore, I'm not saying right wing or left wing, but they're just so over the top with, being the man and being a man and a man. How do you balance it in today's world? How do you be a man, but a Renaissance man? Like, what would you say is a characteristic, or what should you try to do or strive for as a man that's sort of like a balance? I don't even know if there's a question in this, but what's your take on sort of the state of masculinity? Maybe that's a better.
You know what? I think we all have a very good internal barometer for these things. If you think that you should hold the door for somebody, hold the door. Go with your first instinct. When you start overthinking things, I'm reading so much stuff about how to raise my kids and ways that we shouldn't, and no, we actually know more than we give ourselves credit for. That instinct to do different things is usually right. If you think it's a good idea to pull over and help somebody because they have a tire that's flat, whatever the situation might be, just do it. Just go with your main instinct. Don't worry about PC BS. Be a gentleman about it. And that's always led me down the right path. Try to be helpful. Try to be as kind as you can. Kindness has never, ever led anywhere wrong for me, ever. So a lot of times if you just stick to the same core principles, then you're okay. It's when you start to try to amplify that sort of masculinity that it goes off the rails, and we're wonderfully different. My wife and I are so different, and you have to celebrate those differences. There's a good thing. Masculinity can be a great thing. And I don't like the idea of thinking we're all the same, or we have to be more like that, or they have to be more like this. Unfortunately, it's become a 4-letter word, and you're right. It's tough because you really have to tread a fine line between getting political with it and not.
I agree, and that's one of the comments that I see on my videos often is, like, oh, the name of my channel is Alpha M, right? Alpha male. And, even though the backstory to that was, it's not that I ever thought that I was the biggest or the toughest or the picture of, masculinity. And so, the backstory to that was when I was starting my image consulting business, I needed to come up with like a name for, an image consulting firm that was specializing in men. And so I'm like, oh, King of the Jungle, a little too much. So I'm thinking of all these things, and I thought alpha male, kind of felt a little bit too like over the top. And so, M was a little bit more stylized of an option. But, people very frequently point out that I am not like the most, classically like masculine dude. But I really feel like in today's world, you need a different skill set. Back in the day, our grandfathers, it was the biggest, it was the strongest, it was, the tallest, these were the people that were viewed as like the alpha male. I feel like in today's world, the alpha male has evolved a bit. Yes, you should exercise and be strong physically, along with, mentally and emotionally. But I really truly feel like there is a hybrid. And when I talk about you being a Renaissance man, I really feel like even though you are this like macho sort of, you've got this very masculine, macho presence, you're a very sensitive dude. And I love the fact that, you're a sweetheart. And, seriously, you're a sweetheart, Carl. And, just very, and so I love that about you. And the fact that, you have, for the audience out there, Carl and my father met at the conference, the Menfluential conference. And being both musicians, my dad is also into drumming, hand drumming. And, you and he have just really hit it off. And you have been such a nice guy and a great friend to him. And I know that he has really appreciated your friendship. And so, it's amazing just to see sort of the trickle-down effect of, this random conference that Antonio and I put on, thinking that we would get some of our stylish buddies together to talk shop because we really didn't have, a network or anything. And being an entrepreneur is a very lonely road oftentimes. Just to see some of the relationships and the lives that have been changed, and you being one of those people that has truly changed my life along with my father's life. And so I just want to thank you so much for just being just a rock in sort of, when I think about people that, I would go to if I ever had a problem, even though we don't talk all the time, we're not always in communication, like I view you as one of those people, and there aren't that many of them. And so I just want to thank you for always being just, a solid guy and doing what you say you're going to do and always being a gentleman about it. And so I just want to thank you so much, Carl, for everything that you've done for me, everything you've done for the thousands and thousands of guys out there. You've really changed a lot of lives.
Well, I really appreciate that, man. And you got to realize how surreal it is for me going from the guy who was in bed with my iPad watching videos of you and being like, man, maybe I should go to this thing. And this incredible trip, which began a journey that, it's an amazing thing. When you go down to the people and the people that you meet, I can honestly say that if you weren't there, that this wouldn't have happened at all. It would have been something different possibly, but I wouldn't have I wouldn't have gone down this road. I wouldn't have gone to that conference. I wouldn't have been energized and so inspired to begin this. And all through it, you've always been very generous with your time. And hey, Aaron, can we catch up? And we have like an hour-long conversation about ridiculous stuff, And it's just like, it's so crazy to me. It's to me, it was almost like, oh boy, yeah, I really like watching Tom Cruise in this movie. And now Tom Cruise is like your buddy calling you up and being like, dude, COVID's crazy, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it's an amazing thing. And I really, really value our friendship a lot.
Well, listen, Carl, where can everybody find you?
CarlMurawski.com. That's with Carl with a C last name, Murawski. Search the same thing on YouTube. I'm there. Same thing on Instagram. I try to keep it all homogenous and the same name. And way back in the day, it was New England Style Consulting, which I realized I had a hard time saying. I'm like, screw it. It was like 5,000 subscribers. I got to just change this. I can't keep saying this, man. So just change it to my name. And if you search that in any of the platforms except for Twitter, I'm there.
It's super clean. Carl, thank you so much. Guys, we'll link to everything down below. Carl, you're an angel and a gentleman. Thanks, brother, and good luck. If you need anything, let me know.
Thanks, buddy.